The first time the weight of a stranger's trust landed in my palm, it felt heavier than fear and warmer than hope. It happened on a Tuesday evening in a quiet apartment hallway in the United States, where the air smelled like fresh paint and rain, and where a simple metal key became a line between who I was and who I might still become. If you believe that kindness can change a life, that second chances still exist even when everything feels broken, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel, because stories like this are built on faith in human goodness. My name is Caleb Morris, and at that time in my life, I was surviving, not living. I had just turned 33, recently laid off from a logistics warehouse in Ohio after a series of company cutbacks that nobody wanted to talk about. Every rejection email felt colder than the last, and the savings I had scraped together after years of overtime were disappearing one bill at a time. I rented a small room in a worn-down building near the interstate, where the walls were thin and the nights were loud. Every morning I put on the same hopeful face and walked out with my resume tucked under my arm like a fragile promise, convincing myself that persistence alone would be enough to save me. That was the week I met Rachel Whitaker. She lived in the building, across the street, in one of those newer apartment complexes that always seemed just out of reach for people like me. We first crossed paths in the laundry room, surrounded by the hum of machines and the quiet embarrassment of strangers pretending not to notice one another. She had a calm presence, the kind that made the room feel steadier just by standing in it. She smiled with her eyes, not out of politeness, but as if she genuinely saw people. Over the next few days, we exchanged small, ordinary courtesies that somehow felt rare, like holding the door or remembering a name. Rachel worked as a physical therapist at a rehabilitation center nearby, and she carried exhaustion the way kind people often do, tucked behind responsibility and care for others. She lived alone, having moved to the city after a difficult divorce that had left her wary but not bitter. I learned these things slowly, not through dramatic conversations, but through the gentle accumulation of moments. A shared elevator ride, a nod in the parking lot, a brief smile that lingered longer than it needed to. The night everything changed, a storm rolled in hard and sudden. Rain pounded the pavement, and thunder shook the windows of my room like a warning. I had spent the entire day walking between interviews that led nowhere, my shoes soaked, my confidence thinner than ever. When I reached my building, the hallway lights flickered, and the electricity cut out without ceremony. I stood there in the dark, listening to the storm, feeling the familiar panic rise in my chest. Power outages always reminded me how close I was to having nothing at all. That was when I saw her at the end of the hall, framed by emergency lighting, holding a small flashlight and a look of concern. We didn't speak in that moment. Words felt unnecessary. She simply walked toward me, steady and unafraid, and pressed something cold and solid into my hand. It was her apartment key. Her gesture wasn't dramatic, it wasn't desperate, it was deliberate. Her eyes told me everything her words didn't need to. She trusted me, but not carelessly. She believed in me, but not blindly. She offered shelter without obligation, help without expectation. I stood there long after she returned to her apartment, my fingers wrapped around that key, my heart pounding with a mixture of gratitude and terror. Trust is a dangerous gift when you've spent years feeling invisible. I didn't use the key that night. Instead, I sat in my dark room, the storm outside matching the noise in my head, wondering what kind of man deserved something like that. The following weeks tested. Every ounce of restraint and pride I had left. The power came back on, but my life stayed uncertain. Interviews turned into silence, bills stacked up. Some nights, hunger was louder than hope. The key stayed in my pocket, a quiet reminder that someone believed I was worth saving, even if I wasn't sure I believed it myself. Rachel and I continued to cross paths, sharing small moments that felt meaningful precisely because they weren't forced. She never asked if I had used the key. She never made it a condition or a conversation. That, more than anything, made me want to be worthy of her trust. The breaking point came on a cold Friday night when my landlord taped an eviction notice to my door after a banking error delayed my rent. I sat on the floor, the paper shaking in my hands, realizing I had nowhere to go. Pride told me to figure it out alone. Fear told me I was already out of time, and the key in my pocket felt heavier than ever before. I waited until the hallway was quiet, then crossed the street under a sky full of stars that didn't seem to care about my problems. Using that key felt like crossing a threshold I could never uncross. Her apartment was warm, softly lit, and filled with the quiet comfort of a life carefully built. I didn't touch anything that wasn't necessary. I slept on the couch, shoes off, jacket folded, heart racing. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. Rachel didn't confront me when she found me there the next morning. She simply made coffee, set a blanket beside me, and went about her routine as if compassion were the most natural thing in the world. That day marked the beginning of something neither of us had planned but both desperately needed. I didn't move in, and she didn't rescue me. Instead, she helped me rebuild. She helped me revise my resume, encouraged me to apply for positions I thought were beyond me, and reminded me daily that losing a job was not the same as losing my worth. Slowly, things began to change. A logistics firm in Indiana called me back for a second interview. Rachel drove me there herself, waiting in the car with a book and quiet faith. When I got the offer, the relief hit me so hard I had to sit down on the curb outside the building. I wasn't saved by luck. I was saved by trust, patience, and one key given at the right moment. Months later, standing in my own apartment, keys to my own place in my hand, I understood what Rachel had really given me, not shelter, but belief, not rescue, but dignity. Our relationship grew naturally, built on respect and gratitude rather than need. We learned each other's scars without trying to fix them, and that made all the difference. If this story reached something deep inside you, if it reminded you of a time when someone believed in you or when you wished someone had, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps stories like this reach hearts that need them. And before the ending, I have a special request. Comment below and share whether you have ever been given a second chance that changed your life, or if you hope one is still on the way. Today, that old key sits in a small wooden box on my shelf, not because I need it, but because I remember who I was when I almost did. It reminds me that sometimes the bravest thing someone can do is trust another person not to break what they're given. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is live up to that trust, even when you're not sure you can.